I think beauty is very subjective, and I feel like no one would ever ask a man that.
I hope I don't regret asking this, but there's an episode of The Office that's centered around most of the characters, they have a debate about whether or not you're a beautiful woman. Mm-hmm. I'm wondering if you've seen it and what your impression was of the episode.
Well, I will start with saying do you want to know because you want to know how that makes me feel?
Yeah. Oh. Yes, I guess just, being in your position, your image, of course.
Well, I've certainly not played roles that are your typical, it's not, I play real people. And I think beauty is very subjective. And I feel like no one would ever ask a man that. And I used to get asked often in my interviews, you're such a beautiful woman. You're sitting here and you're so beautiful. When are you going to play a pretty girl? Mm. And it just blew my mind, because the women that I play are so beautiful in their devotion and their perseverance and in their strengths. And to me, that's so beautiful. And I feel like a big part of growth that needs to take place, and that is, I think, taking place now, is that that's finally not asked anymore. And women have been so objectified for so long. To me, like I said, just beauty is within a person and how they choose to walk through their life. And so I guess that's my answer to that.
What was it about acting that you loved?
Well, I feel so lucky that I knew at such a young age that I wanted to be an actor, because I got kind of a head start, and I think that that's a blessing. And to find something that you love so much that ignites your passion. And for me, I think we've all felt like an outsider at some point in our lives. And for me, it was when I was younger and I was living in a trailer park, and I didn't know that that was seen as a certain way by some people. And so feeling kind of ostracized and in that place, I would read books and I'd watch movies that had characters that felt feelings I was feeling. And so I could relate to them. And immediately I thought, I didn't know it was something you could do as a career. Yeah. But then I just started auditioning for the school play. One of my teachers had us write a skit in front of the class, and I was 8 years old. And I remember doing it, and I remember coming alive. I remember thinking, this is so much fun, and I loved the reactions and and playing with the class. And he said, you should audition for a school play. And so that kind of began the momentum of that. And I auditioned for the school play, and then one thing led to another, and I was doing local repertory theater in my town of Bellingham, Washington. And my mom came to a crossroads in her life, and she said, if you really want to do this, I think we have to go to Los Angeles. And I was auditioning at Seattle Repertory Theater at that point, and we moved to Los Angeles, with $75, and lived out of our car. And people go, oh my gosh, that's terrible. I was like, no, that's a dream come true.
Tell us why it's a dream come true. Also, a mother that would say, okay, let's follow your dream.
Yeah.
It's pretty rare.
My mom really gave me the greatest gift in that she believed in me, and she said, you can do anything you want as long as you work hard enough. And so I just never questioned that you can achieve your dream if you don't work hard. I never took no as a thing to think, as to define that it wasn't going to happen. I just took it as, okay, well, this isn't going to work out, and there's another opportunity that I have to find and work for. And that's a great gift you can give a child. I don't think there's any better gift you can give a child. My mom was at a crossroads in her life too, so she needed the change up for herself too. And now my mom still lives in Southern California and has a great job and is in a beautiful relationship, and and so it was right for her to follow all of that too. But what was your question?
This is why she's so awesome, so generous.
Because I forget.
Well, we're just initially talking about what it was about acting, but also just, about general experiences. I guess the follow-up question to this would be, so you and your mother arrive to Hollywood. Mm-hmm. Now what? Like, how do you even start in the industry? I'm thinking of emerging performers in this audience who are like, okay, I have my $75 in car.
Yeah.
I'm in Hollywood. What did Hilary do next?
We learned that you have to have an agent, and to get an agent, you usually have to have some type of resume or a headshot, and we didn't have any of that. So my mom went to the Samuel French bookstore and got a book of agents. And she got a roll of quarters and stood at a payphone and called these agents. And at one point, there was this agency called the Harry Gold Agency that said, oh yeah, we're looking for new talent. A lot of people, I guess, look for new youth talent. And they said, come in on Wednesday and we'll meet you. And so we went in, and I remember vividly, like it was yesterday, these two women, and they had me read. It wasn't to audition for McDonald's. It was to audition for them to represent me. So I read this McDonald's commercial, and they gave me some notes, and I took their notes and their direction, and I read it again, and they said, well, congratulations, you have an agent. So I went out, and I was like, Mom, I got an agent. This woman, her name was Bonnie Leedke, and she's still an agent in Hollywood. She was a very, very, very pivotal, obviously my first agent, but also a pivotal force in my career because she had a really strong work ethic, and she encouraged me to do everything, to always learn and to never give up and to keep going and going and going. And that is the work ethic of my parents. And so that worked with the way I like to work. And she was my agent until I was an adult, because she was a child agent. So when I turned, like my early 20s, she wasn't my agent anymore, but she was my agent for a long time. And it entailed just hitting, there were so many auditions that I did. I wouldn't even be able to count how many auditions I went on before I ever even got the opportunity to go into Growing Pains and pull a bunny out of a hat and say, ta-da! The one thing that I would encourage you guys is to just never give up, and to never knock an opportunity to grow. I just auditioned for everything because I thought, if I get that opportunity just to work with people and collaborate with people, and that when the time does come, when there's that role that I really want, this will help prepare me for that.
You mentioned all the work you did. A few years ago, you received an Outfest Legacy Award for the work that you did in this film, and then also championing LGBTQ+ rights. What role does TV and film play? What role has it played, but what role can we imagine in the future it playing for creating a more equitable society when it comes to these community members who are treated horrendously?
Yeah, I think inclusivity, but across the board with different races and different creeds, and there's a lot of work to be done. And I think that we're really an exciting time for women right now. And the women have been trivialized and objectified for so long, and so across the board there's a lot of work to be done. And I think as long as we continue to talk about it and to create opportunities for everyone, because the beauty of art is that everyone has a place within it. And to have a business for so long be run by white men, it was so polarized, and it was really one way of seeing things, and that's just not the way the world is. If you step outside of the film industry, or you step outside of some arts, right? It's so much bigger than that. So I think, are on it's a precipice of excitement, because when Boys Don't Cry was made, it was one movie.
Yeah.
And now there's been a lot of other of films and TV shows that show all the different ways in which people live and walk in this world. And I think we're going to continue to do that. I think there's more opportunities now for more content than ever with all the streaming and all the other different ways and platforms. So I think it's an exciting time, but I think we have to continue to talk about it and to create those opportunities.
It's amazing to think that that film was 20 years ago, and the
Yeah.
conversation that is only recently now getting into the mainstream.
I know.
I have been following your career since that film, but watching all of the films over again in preparation, it's like these characters are phenomenal. The next kind of big moment that we're going to jump to in this conversation, because I would love for it to be like a 20-hour conversation, but I don't know, is thinking about your seminal role in the formidable character of Maggie in $1 Million Baby.
Thank you. That is just, it's an always a dream come true, getting to collaborate with Clint Eastwood. And I've never read a more perfect script. There wasn't one word that was changed. Paul Haggis just wrote a beautiful story, and Clint is Clint, and Morgan is Morgan, and it is a complete dream come true. And I was 29 when I filmed that, and the last day of filming was on my 30th birthday, and I remember thinking, I don't know if it's going to get better than this, and I'm only 29, about to turn 30. And I just soaked up every moment on that set with those iconic people.
It's amazing that you had perspective at a young age to know that you're in this moment. I read in an interview that you said, thinking about Maggie's character and her kind of being fueled by boxing, that is how you feel about acting and performing. What is it that drives you to that point where you will tussle, you will show up to that audition, even if you're not invited, that you will just, it's not no, it's not yet.
Thank you for saying that, for recognizing that. I just have this insatiable curiosity about people and what makes them tick and what makes them alike and what makes them different. And I feel the most alive when I'm telling stories about people that make me think bigger and and blow up on my blinders of how I see the world. And I feel so enriched by these people. Every single person that I've played has a place in my heart. And when I'm acting and collaborating, I love the collaboration process so much. And it's always a lesson there's something to learn, and I really love to learn. So it's like the perfect amalgam of all these things that I love, all in one place, and it just brings me so much joy.
You talked about collaboration and you talked about character building. What was it like to work with an actor-director on this project and others? Well,
in the case of Clint, you meet him and it's so intimidating because he's Clint Eastwood, and he quickly makes you feel very comfortable because he's just this breath of fresh air, and he's so real, and he's really, I hate to ruin your idea of go ahead, make my day, but he's a complete teddy bear, and he's just a total love, and he's funny, and he stands in the lunch line. He doesn't cut, and he doesn't ask for someone to bring him his lunch. He stands and waits behind everyone because everyone needs to eat. That's the kind of guy Clint is. And But when you're working with your director, who you're also acting with,
Yeah.
in the beginning, I was doing a scene with him, and I could see that he was like kind of looking at me like the director. And I was like, wait, I've never looked at my director while I've done a scene. This is really interesting, and how am I gonna work through this? And then as we got to know each other, we became more comfortable with one another, and he became more comfortable with where I was going with the character, and then he was getting deeper into his character and in the scenes. I felt less and less that I was sitting with my director and I was sitting with, the boss, so.
So your curiosity, your drive, your tenacity, it's very evident. Does this mean that you are someone who likes to have a lot of takes, or you like it to be prepared ahead of time?
It's a good question.
Where does that tilt with you?
I don't like a lot of takes. I like a few takes, maybe 4, but somewhere in the 3s, because I just like to try a variation, and I think it's important to give a director a variation. And because when you're editing, I think when a director is in the room editing, they might say, oh, it would have been better to be angry only once in this place, and now we have these 2 angry things, and that's just an example, and and it would have been better if it was nuanced here, and this was something different. So I'd like to try and give choices for myself too, to play the character and find the character as you're going. But I think for the most part, and I think a big part of it was my training in television, because television is moving so quickly, and you don't get more really than 1-2 takes, and they're cutting it so quickly that they're not looking for your best performance. They're just getting it cut together to get it on air. So part of my training was to get it all in 1 take.
That'd be terrifying, that it's just whatever random clip they find that they edit together. Not that I'm a perfectionist or anything, but that would be very uncomfortable to be like, oh, this one's good. And you're like, my 3rd one was really good. Yeah,
but it is really good training, and especially when you're working with someone like Clint, who is notorious for 1 take. So and I am really prepared, but
that's not surprising to any of us in here.
But I'm really prepared for a myriad reasons, and one of the reasons is that it helps me squash my fear. Mm-hmm. So.
Totally.
What are the biggest things you learned about life and about acting from Clint Eastwood and Morgan Freeman?
Wow, you guys don't mess around. I like it. Well, from Clint, I learned how to not overthink. Clint says, you prepare. He says, I hire the people that I know who are right for the job, and you know what you're doing, and you've done your work. Now let it go. And I think that's just such a great metaphor for life. If you show up every day for your life, you understand what it is you're going after, and I have this motto of make a choice, make it happen, and work every single day towards whatever that goal is. Step into the sharp edges, do something that scares you, don't pull away, and don't overthink. So I got that don't overthink from Clint, because you can really overthink yourself right out of something. There's a lot of what ifs that you think about that most times don't ever happen. So there's that. And then with Morgan, he's just so, there's such an ease in which he does his stuff. I remember in one scene we had, it was the scene when we were in the diner together, and it was my birthday, and not my real birthday, but my character's birthday. And he was singing. He was just singing a song. It was like a Carmichael song, and then all of a sudden he started doing the lines, and I was like, oh, okay. He wants to rehearse. And so I was in it with him, and then Clint was like, okay, that's enough of that. And they moved the camera. It was his take. And I just thought, wow, how beautiful is that? He wasn't overthinking it, and he was just ease. He's the personification of ease.
We've been so incredibly fortunate tonight to get the thoughtfulness and generosity of Hilary to give us these life lessons of tenacity, to go get it, to be prepared, to be humble. There's so many lessons that we received today. Thank you so much for taking time tonight.
Thank you for your thoughtful questions. Thank you. Thank you. You were so present and so thoughtful yourselves. Thank you. Thank you, everybody, for being here. Thank you.